Hey everyone, it's Caly. So glad you're here today to celebrate Pretty Pink Posh's ninth birthday release. This is the February 2023 release, and again, we are celebrating Pretty Pink Posh's ninth birthday, so there are a lot of birthday themed products here to share with you. I have 3 cards, and they're going to be using new stencils, stamps, and dies from Pretty Pink Posh. So before we get started on our projects, I want to briefly show you the stamps and dies and stencil sets that I'm going to be using. This first set is called Birthday Signs, and I've gone ahead and colored a few images off camera to save some time. This second set is called Birthday Sentiments, and as you can see, the die set comes with a tag-shaped die that's kind of fun with an open window. And again, I've colored a few images from this set as well. And I've also decorated my little gifts and images with some gel highlights. So I did that off camera to save some time. This video is a little longer than usual, so we're just going to speed right through things. This is the large Celebrate hot foil stamp and die set. So I foiled that in gold, and we will work with that later. Now, the mug set has been so popular, and every month there's been a new addition to go with this original winter mug set. This month's release comes with the birthday mug editions, and we're also going to go back to the Valentine's release and use the little whipped cream die from that set as well to go on our card today. Next, I have the gift card bag. This little treat bag will hold a little gift card, and you can use it as a standalone project or on a card. So I'll be using it on a card later on. And now for the stencils. I have 3 stencil sets that I'm using on this card. This first one is the party hats, and the second one is some simple streamers, and I'll be using them diagonally on a card later. And then last but not least, I have the layered birthday cake set. So there are several layers to some of these stencil sets that add a lot of detail. So we're going to be doing stenciling first. I do want to mention I don't have the full release. I am just sharing the products that I'm using on my cards today. So lots of ink blending, and I'm going to speed through this process because it's kind of redundant. If you want more details on the color combinations that I use, be sure to refer to my blog. It'll be linked in the descriptions below, and you can see what colors I use specifically on each of these cards. So on my birthday cake card, I am layering 2 different colors. I'm using pinks and teals, and the first layer is going to be a light layer of these colors, and I'm adding more, or I'm starting at the bottom of the cakes and going up. So naturally it's going to be a little darker at the bottom and fading up towards a lighter color at the top. For the second layers where we add some cake details, I'm using a darker shade of the pink and teal to do this second layer. Simon Says Stamps Positively Saturated inks come in 3 different shades per color family or color group. So I'm using the lightest and the darkest for this card. Okay, so for the third layer, we have some candles that we're going to be adding to our panel. By the way, I'm using the waffle flower stencil mat. It keeps my paper in place, so every time I remove a stencil and put a new one over it, the paper stays in place, and I just need to butt the corner of my stencil into that corner and everything lines up perfectly. So that candle stick layer is using the original colors from the first layer, so the lighter of the pinks and teals, and then I just quickly did a run over of the candles just to give it a light layer, and then for the flames we have some yellow. So I'm done with this card panel and those stencils. Now I'm going to move on to the party hats. I have a new piece of cardstock there, and again, that piece of cardstock is going to stay in place with each stencil that I use. I just need to butt that stencil up into the corner there in the bottom left-hand corner, and then everything will line up perfectly with each stencil layer. So similar to the very first panel, I'm alternating colors. This time I'm using pinks and blues. So I'm doing every other hat, and I'm blending from the bottom up. So there's going to be, again, more shading at the bottom of these hats, going to a lighter fade at the top. On this panel, instead of using darker shades of blues and pinks, I'm using a heavier hand to create a darker, more saturated color. For the third layer of this stencil set, we're doing the pom-poms. I'm going to use the same pinks and blues. In fact, I'm not even going to pull in any additional ink. I'm just using the residual ink on my blending brush to apply a light wash of color over those pom-poms. The last and final layer is a layer of stars in between these party hats, so I'm going in with some sunbeam ink. Then that finishes our second panel for our second card. I'm going to go ahead and clean my surface, clean my stencils, and then go ahead and start a third panel. For the streamer stencils, I thought I would do something a little bit different. You could do streamers all the way up and down your card or across your card. I decided to stencil some streamers going diagonally all the way down my panel just for some interest and to show you that you can use these stencils in different ways than stenciling everything that's a part of the stencil. So for the first layer, I applied some light pink, and then for the second layer, I'm using the same ink and just applying a heavier hand. And I'm free forming where I want these streamers to go. So I am using the first and second streamers on that stencil so I don't mix inks and whatnot. And then I'll flip it over and again use the first and third streamers for the purple streamers that I'm doing going the opposite direction. I hope that makes sense. You can kind of see what I'm doing. Again, the second layer is a little bit darker, using the same ink for a heavier hand so that you can get some contrast and changes in color going through this card. So I just like that there's some movement on the streamers for this third panel. All right, so I have all of my panels created. Now we're gonna start putting our cards together. This first card is gonna be the most simple. It's also the boldest of the three. So I'm gonna try and mute the colors a little bit, but first I wanna give it some interest by adding some pink all the way around the panel. I'm gonna trim it just by 1/8 of an inch off all of the edges to clean it up. And then to mute down the colors, I'm gonna use a layer of vellum. I've also trimmed down the vellum layer to add a 1/4 inch matting so that you could still see the brightness of the birthday cakes around the edges. And then I'm going to pull in my large Celebrate sentiment that I foiled with gold foil, and I went ahead and die cut that using the coordinating die. Now I'm going to attach my sentiment to this row of gifts, and then we can attach the whole thing to that vellum layer using some foam squares that I've cut down to make sure that it all adheres well. So the reason why I didn't adhere that vellum layer down was because I wanted to make sure that my sentiment and my image was on it first so that I had some space on the back to apply some adhesive where it wasn't going to show. So that finishes this panel. And if you want to make it more interesting, you can turn this into a shaker or you can add some sequins over the vellum. I just decided that this was going to be good enough for me. I'm going to set that aside and we're going to work on our second card. So for the party hats, I thought it would be fun to use this party hats panel to create that gift bag out of. So it's not going to be in the background. It's going to be the focal point of the card. So I went ahead and die cut my gift card bag out of it. And now, just like in that last panel, I'm going to add some color around the edges. And so this time I'm using some blue ink. The die cuts these perforated marks into that gift card bag, so it's not scored, and this is more obvious for you. So I'm just going to fold along those perforations, and then we can apply some double-sided tape on those tabs so that we can apply them to a background. I'm going to apply it to a simple white background. That panel has been cut down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I'm going to add some strong double-sided adhesive tape to those tabs on the gift bag. And then we'll simply apply it to that white background panel. I'm going to use the rest of my colored images on this little gift bag. I've got images here from the birthday sign set as well as the birthday sentiment set. And I'm going to attach that balloon with some liquid adhesive and the rest of the images with some foam adhesive for some dimension. I'm going to pull back in that birthday sentiment set and then I'll stamp and emboss a sentiment for the upper left-hand corner of the gift bag to finish up this card. I'm going to do some simple white embossing over black cardstock here. So I'm going to heat set this, and it doesn't come with coordinating dies. So I'm going to fussy cut it and be as careful as I can. And then we can go ahead and adhere this to our gift card bag. I'm applying some strips of black foam tape, which I'm a fan of, especially when I'm using black cardstock and black sentiment strips. And that completes this gift card panel. And as you can see, it fits a gift card well. It does slide in and out. There's plenty of room if you want to stuff like tissue paper in there. I'll show you how you can fix it at the end so that the gift card is popping up a little bit, making it more obvious for the recipient. Moving on to our third card, I have all of these mug edition sets. So I've die cut the pieces, and the little window there is from this release's die set, this birthday set. So you can see it at the top right there in that die set. I've gone ahead and die cut all of the pieces that I want to use, and we're going to do some ink blending and adding a bit of Copic coloring on this large candle flame. I'm adding a layer of yellow first, then some orange, and then red, and then going back in with the yellow to kind of blend all of that out. It just creates a more realistic flame, I guess. Okay, so now I'm going to go through and ink blend all of my little decoration pieces for my mug card. And I've used some teals and pinks, trying to keep it all cohesive and not complicate this with too many colors. I'm going to use the teal on the mug itself and do that over the frame as well of the mug. And I decided when I was making this card that I wanted to turn this into a shaker. So you don't actually need all the extra handle of the mug or the top of the mug on this second piece, so I'm going to trim it off. And then next we're going to have to cut down some acetate to go behind this mug window. I have some clear acetate here, and I'm just going to use that base of the mug as an outline, and I'm going to cut a little bit smaller of a piece so that I can fit on that window perfectly. Then I'll use some double-sided adhesive, go all the way around the bottom of the outline of this mug, and then attach my acetate. Now that we've created our acetate shaker card window, we can go ahead and add some foam adhesive. You can also cut a few layers of the same opening, but since that die for that opening is free formed, I can't guarantee that I'm going to have the same cut every time, so I thought it would be safer to use some foam adhesive this time. So once I've attached some foam adhesive all the way around my window, can go ahead and remove the backing, or you can save it to remove later. It's just easier to create those rounded corners when you remove the backing first. There are 3 new clay mixes from this release. I am using the Funfetti mix as well as the Party Swirls. I thought it'd be kind of fun to put those colorful swirls in there from the swirls mix. And then once I'm happy with the amount of shaker mixes or clay mixes that are in the shaker window, I can go ahead and apply the backing piece to my mug. So my mug shaker portion is done. I can go ahead and start piecing together what I want this mug to look like. I'm going to use some liquid adhesive to adhere the first few things. Here, the first layer of the top of this mug is going to be the coffee layer or the latte layer. Now you'll notice I didn't ink blend this layer. I thought a lot of it disappears as you're stacking and adding embellishments to the card. So I learned from my last 2 cards it's kind of pointless to ink blend it, but it's completely up to you. I just thought it would be faster if I skipped that part. And then I attach my whipped cream, and now I'm going to piece together my candle. I'm going to use a Copic marker to add some gray on the wick there to make it a little bit more realistic, and then I'll piece together these little candle decorations, which I end up pulling up off later and cutting down because you just never know how you're going to use an element. It's safer to just put everything together and decide what you want to do with it. And then I'll piece together this fun little star wand. It's kind of a stirring stick for the latte. And then I'll decide how I want it to look. I'll have to trim down that wand as well to make it stick up from the top, but going through the latte so it's not going through the front of the shaker panel. And like I said, I had to remove that pink layer on the candle and kind of tuck it in there and make it a little shorter to tuck it behind that whipped cream panel as well. So on those elements sticking up, I used some foam, and then on the back of that shaker panel, I'm using some liquid adhesive, and that helps secure everything and keep it flush as well. I attached the cake with some foam adhesive as well, and I thought for some extra interest on the streamers, I would add some fold lines or crease lines, and then while I was doing that, I added some gel highlights on my images as well. For the sentiment, I stamped and embossed another sentiment from the birthday sentiment set, and then that completes the 3rd card. I have my 3 cards now, and all I have left to do is to attach these to card bases. Now I wanted to show you, I wasn't happy with how the gift card kind of hides completely. It's kind of not intuitive for a recipient to know unless that card comes flying out. So I'm going to remove my bag, and I'm using Undo. It's an adhesive remover, and it works great on dry adhesive. So not liquid adhesives, but tape runners and whatnot. Usually I would do this from the back, but because I've already applied my card to a card base, I'm doing it from the top. And as you can see, it doesn't affect any Copic coloring or ink blending or even watercoloring. It's my favorite adhesive remover. And then I measured the gift card from the top of this gift bag to see how far it was gonna sit or how far I wanted it to hang out. And I decided that it needed a 3¼ bumper, if you will. So I used 2 layers of a piece of cardstock that was cut down to 3¼ and I adhered that to the bottom of the bag and then re-adhered this bag to my card. So that adhesive is still active. Once that evaporates, once that Undo evaporates, you can use it just like you were reapplying your card or your element to your card. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that finishes my 3 cards for this birthday release. Happy birthday to Pretty Pink Posh. I hope you enjoyed these products. Be sure to check out the full release because there are so many other great products that I didn't get to use for this video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. That will help with engagement and help you to see more of what I make. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye, everyone.